morning, evening, or night, wherever you are, welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Monday, 19th May 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. India's stock market presented a mixed picture as the Sensex declined by 271 points to close at 82,059.42, while the Nifty 50 ended at 24,944.45, a decrease of 75 points. Despite this downturn, foreign investors injected $620 crore into Indian equities during May, encouraged by stable geopolitical conditions and positive shifts in global trade. Experts like Mohit Khanna anticipate a range-bound market until trade discussions with the US become clearer, while Revolut forecasts Nifty's returns to mirror the expected low-teen earnings growth, underlining India's growth. NLC India announced a net profit of $468.46 crore for the fourth quarter of fiscal year. The Coal Ministry is contemplating listing Bharat Coking Coal Ltd, BCL, and Central Mine Planning and Design Institute, CMPDI, dependent on market suitability. Shares of Servotech Renewable Power Systems rose by 4.5% after Elon Musk's visit to India was announced, following his appointment to the company's Global Advisory Board. China's economic landscape presented a complex picture in April. Industrial output saw a healthy rise of 6.1%, surpassing expectations and signaling resilience against U.S. tariffs. However, retail sales, property data, and investment figures fell short of projections, indicating a potential slowdown. To support local manufacturers, the Chinese government mandated state entities to prioritize domestic electric vehicles, EVs, in official purchases, building on policies begun in 2024. The production of industrial robots surged, driven by growing interest in the technology. WHAM, China's Baidu navigation system, achieved a milestone of 1 trillion daily uses, injecting almost $80 billion into the economy in the last year. Goldman Sachs advised value investors to concentrate on Chinese sectors favored by government policies, especially as trade frictions lessen. Xiaomi is set to introduce the X-Ring Mourn processor for its high-end smartphones, a result of a $6.90 billion divestment in homegrown chip development. Globally, Lynas achieved a significant milestone by becoming the first producer of heavy rare earths outside of China. United Kingdom. The United Kingdom and the European Union have reset relations 5 years after Brexit in 2020. New agreements aim to boost defense cooperation and ease food trade and border checks. Buy now, pay later. Plans will face regulation as the government introduces formal rules. Upland Resources is preparing for its share admission on the London Stock Exchange. Ukraine, Russia, United States. Turning to Eastern Europe, former U.S. President Donald Trump plans to speak with both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Trump hopes to end the bloodbath in Ukraine through these discussions. Meanwhile, Kyiv warns that Russia intends to test a ballistic missile with a 10-km range, potentially to intimidate NATO. The United States experienced a decline in global shares, with S&P 500 and Nasdaq futures dropping over 1.3%. After Moody's ratings downgraded the country's sovereign credit rating, potentially worsening Wall Street's concerns about the U.S. sovereign bond market. Turning to Australia, shares closed lower, influenced by mining stocks, as the Reserve Bank of Australia, RBA, prepares for an interest rate decision. Mineral Resources named Malcolm Bundy as its next chair The U.S. debt downgrade contributed to ending the winning streak for Australian shares. Furthering international connections, the Canadian Securities Exchange is set to acquire the National Stock Exchange of Australia. Saudi Arabia is strategically pivoting away from oil through investments in technology, manufacturing, and finance. The kingdom is prioritizing artificial intelligence as a cornerstone of this economic transformation. The Public Investment Fund, PIF, is at the heart of this strategy, with plans to invest $170 billion in Europe by 2030 and the inauguration of a new office in Paris. Within Saudi Arabia, the PIF is partnering with Hyundai to build an automotive plant, a move anticipated to boost local vehicle financing options. Further diversifying its manufacturing base, the PIF and China's DHX Group are jointly developing the first tinplate plant in Ras Al Khaimah. Naif Al Khaimah Investment and TGCC are also collaborating on pioneering projects across the kingdom. Saudi banks are presently enjoying a surge in lending activity, contributing to a 27% increase in profits during March. Despite these advancements, the PEF chief has criticized Europe's stringent sustainability regulations. In diplomatic developments, Mambrigi has been appointed as Gambia's ambassador to Saudi Arabia. European economic forecasts have been revised downward by officials, citing the impact of U.S. tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump. Simultaneously, European stock markets experienced a downturn, influenced by a U.S. credit downgrade and worrisome economic data originating from China. Despite these challenges, Germany's DAX index has shown strength, marking a 19% rise so far this year. As for manufacturing, Stellantis and Leapmotor, a Chinese electric vehicle company, are nearing a decision on a European production facility. This shift reflects an anticipated 10% rise in production expenses relative to a previously contemplated site in Poland. China's economic data disappointed, contributing to a regional market downturn. This coincided with a U.S. credit rating downgrade. The Asian currency appreciation may offer some relief. Trade and tourism-dependent economies should remain cautious. Ultra-wealthy Asian buyers still significantly impact London's prime residential market. Russia prepared for a pivotal call between President Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, with government sources suggesting a desired exchange rate of 100 rubles to the dollar. Simultaneously, in a move condemned internationally, Russia outlawed Amnesty International, signaling a further tightening of control over internal dissent. Preceding the anticipated conversation with Trump, Russia initiated the largest drone attack of the ongoing war. Despite the imposition of Western sanctions aimed at weakening the Russian economy, recent reports indicate a failure in achieving the intended crippling effect, bolstering Putin's confidence heading into discussions with Trump, where he reportedly believed Russia held a position of strength. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy also had a call scheduled with Donald Trump, setting the stage for potentially complex diplomatic interactions involving all parties. Portugal's recent parliamentary election saw the Democratic Alliance emerge victorious, yet shy of a majority, setting the stage for another minority government. Consequently, the President of Portugal has initiated discussions with various political factions to chart a course forward amidst this fragmented political reality. Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has committed to fiscal responsibility. He stated that Japan will not pursue tax cuts funded by issuing more debt. Meanwhile, Japan's financial markets saw significant activity. Record inflows of investment occurred in April as investors looked for stability away from U.S. markets. The Nikkei stock average later declined amid broader anxieties following the U.S. credit downgrade. This downgrade also led to a stronger yen. South Korea may see increased investment in its own military forces, potentially allowing U.S. troops stationed there to focus more on China, according to an analyst. Separately, South Korean shares declined amidst market volatility, triggered by a U.S. credit downgrade. Turning to South Africa, economists suggest the country's third attempt at its budget may indicate a revenue shortfall of 4.7% of GDP. President Ramaphosa intends to strengthen ties with the U.S. through a business push involving Elon Musk, while the South African rand remains stable ahead of the budget announcement and a meeting with President Trump. In Qatar, Standard Chartered's Huon sees opportunities in financial services and technology, as the nation seeks to diversify its economy away from oil and gas in collaboration with Hong Kong. This follows Qatar's $1.20 trillion pledge, attracting finance leaders to Doha. The Kremlin described the Romanian election, in which centrist Bucharest Mayor Nicuzet Dan appeared poised to win the presidency in an upset over a hard-right rival, as strange to say the least. In the latest from Canada, tariffs imposed by President Trump on auto parts are reportedly causing job losses in Windsor, Ontario, a key hub for manufacturing components for vehicles destined for the United States. France's projected growth rate for 2025 was revised down to 0.6% from 0.8% due to uncertainties surrounding tariffs. Revolut plans to invest €1 billion in France and apply for a license to operate there. Indonesia and Thailand have agreed to elevate their relationship to a strategic partnership with the goal of increasing trade and investment during the Indonesian president's state visit. Amid trade tensions, some Chinese companies are considering listing on the Singapore Stock Exchange to expand their market. Singapore's IPO market is attracting increasing interest from Chinese firms. Pakistan's stock market, the KSE 100 index, experienced a 0.33% decline as India intensified diplomatic pressure. India plans to send delegations to discuss terrorism. Spain's government has mandated that Airbnb block over 65,000 holiday rental listings on its platform for violating regulation. In the United States, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang has unveiled new products and strategies aimed at maintaining the company's leadership in the field of AI computing. The German DAX index has increased by 19% year-to-date. Deutsche Bank is regaining its position as a leading entity in German IPO. Malaysia and Saudi Arabia are set to strengthen bilateral cooperation in trade and investment, according to Minister Zafrul. Zema Group is planning a dual listing on the Sofia and Frankfurt stock exchanges in early 2026 in Bulgaria. Watches of Switzerland reported strong growth in the 6 months leading up to April in Switzerland. Indonesia is involving Singaporean traders in a $12 billion probe into Pertamina, the state-owned oil and gas company. Mambarinji has been appointed as Gambia's ambassador to Saudi Arabia. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.